initially picked up this old account, one of my main goals was 300% Telos. I didn't have as much knowledge about one defense builds as I have now, and because of that, I thought that was going to be close to the end of the road. When I got 500%, a lot of people were asking me if they thought I was going for 500%, if I thought it was viable at all, and I just told them that I really didn't think it was. As time went on, I got 300%, and honestly, when I got it, I had this very overwhelming feeling of unsatisfaction. I felt like I had managed to get so far with so many missing upgrades, and I figured if I went out and got them, I could definitely push further than I expected. So that's what I've been doing. That's why for the last 2 months I posted about once. Apologize about that. But after all this time, I would love to show you how I did 400% Telos. I'd say the transition between 300 and 400 was probably the most eventful in terms of making progress at Telos. In terms of small upgrades, big upgrades, rotation changes, all that kind of stuff, there's definitely been the biggest amount in between 300 and 400. So I want to get into all that, and I would like to also show you my reviewed setup for it. The first thing I want to go over is why I have so many damn weapons, so let's start off with the main stuff. The most important ones are the DPS weapons, which are pretty much just your standard main account DPM gear. Stuff like Kopesh's, ZGS, Spear, all that. I did go ahead and reperk them to try to get more adrenaline throughout the fight. I'll explain why that's important later. But what I ended up doing is with Precise 6 I did Impatient 1, and with Equilibrium 4 I got Relentless 2 on my ZGS and my dual wield weapons. Although this is less DPS than using Aftershock, I just needed all the damage in the world, so that helps for that. After that I got the Inquisitor staff with Greater Chain. I put Caraming 4 and Precise 6 on it. This is going to be for P4 Golem clears, as when I use Greater Chain, any ability that I use after that becomes an AoE on the 2 other golems. So by using Asphyxiate on the red golem, I can stun that one and deal a lot of damage to the 2 other ones, then go into a Hurricane and Quake, and it's almost always a guaranteed clear. It makes it so much smoother. While getting the Inquisitor staff, I also got another EOF with the Staff of Light in it. The Staff of Light spec costs 100 adren, but what it does is for an entire minute I get a 50% melee damage reduction. The high cost of it does make it pretty niche, but there are parts where it's borderline necessary. I already had the Stadius Warhammer EOF, however I did implement it a lot better into my rotations, and just overall it's a lot better. Using the spec reduces the defense of whatever target you're using, and although that doesn't increase the damage of every single hit you do, it greatly increases your chance of splashing, which ends up, dealing more DPS overall. Now this is one that I get a lot of questions about, the Lava Whip. I already had it back in the day, but I used to have a different mobile switch. What I ended up doing is I figured a way to get Relentless 5 with mobile, so that way I saved an inventory spot, and I still get to use my Lava Whip. The special attack costs 75 adren and it stuns for 6 seconds. Although this seems very steep, it allows me to stunlock Telos. It's a little tricky, but it definitely works if you do it right. I can extend the duration of P5 by more than double. It's really good. The Superior Vesta Spear I already had. The special attack reduces incoming damage by 50% for 5 seconds. This is a good alternative to something like Reflect, which this account doesn't have because of 1 defense. Next up is the Sign of Life, which I occasionally use on P5 if I can't clear him before the insta-kill. It gets me a second cycle. I then got Arethor's Grimoire, which increases your crit chance greatly. The reason why it helps so much is because when I use Meteor Strike for the Golem clear on P5, every critical hit that I do gives me 10 extra adren. That way, when I'm doing my Golem clear, I end up getting a lot of adren back. It can sometimes be literally half of my adren bar. I also ended up getting the Grasping Rune Pouch, which is the new rune pouch that lets you have 4 runes in it. With that, I got the runes for Shield Dome and Ice Barrage. Shield Dome reduces incoming damage by 50%. You can use it again, but then it'll be 25%. And then if you use it again, it's 12% and so on, with a 2-minute reset. Ice Barrage just helps me not get stunned on P4. I'll explain it later. I got the Declaw EOF since that helps for DPSing Telos during P5. Since you're in Green Beam, you get a shit ton of adren, so that helps for that. I got the Best in Swap Melee Armor, which is a mix of Witch Doctor, Rune Crafting outfit, and Wicked outfit. A lot of skilling outfits actually have flat damage reductions, which most armors actually don't have. For example, bronze reduces incoming damage by 0%. The only thing it does is increase your defense stat, which makes it so that enemies are more likely to splash on you. However, because it's bronze, it's such a small decrease in accuracy for the enemy that it just is completely not worth it. There's no reason to use it. So that's the setup I'm using. I'm going to go over a couple of rotation things. I'll be skipping P2 just because there's not a whole lot going on, but anyways. Before I get into the fight, I use the Staff of Light spec to get the 1 minute of 50% melee damage reduction. Okay, I'm about to bombard you with info. Don't worry if you don't get all of this. There's a lot going on. I backstep at the start of the fight so that my first attack that I receive is a magic hit. I then power burst for the first melee hit. That, alongside the Staff of Light spec and SS flicking, makes it so I use no food during the entire first phase. Then I start a standard Zerg G-Barge rotation with Assault as my bleed. I then Quake and use the Stadius Warhammer to reduce his accuracy. And then I wait until the last tick of Zerg to use Hurricane to 1 tick clear the Tendril. For Zerg to align with the Tendril, you need to wait about 1 or 2 game ticks before the fight actually starts. Then once P3 begins, you want to start a standard Zerg G-Barge rotation. However, you don't want to use the Adrem pot. You want to save that for the next phase. After my bleed, I go into Red Beam, which increases my attack. If I am about to get a hold still, I anticipate, pray melee, and do devotion. That doesn't interrupt my DPS unlike Shield Dome, so it's better to use that. During P4, I make sure to save my Power Burst to Vitality since I want to keep that for P5. So the reason why I was keeping the Adrem pot for P4 was that so I can get an extra Vesta Spear. When golems show up, I use the Inquisitor Staff. I use Greater Chain on the red golem, then Asphyxiate since it only stuns the primary target. By the time Asphyxiate ends, the golem is almost dead, so I use either Hurricane or Quake. Clearing the golems for the second font is pretty much the exact same thing as the first one. The only thing is I make sure to go into the font after clearing them so that I can use Shield Dome uninterrupted. That cuts half of the damage I take charging up the font. After charging up the last font, I use the Staff of Light spec so that I can go into P5 with that damage reduction. Once again, I make sure to always save the Power Burst for P5, so that's why I'm only doing a Vesta Spear on the SMP. Once P5 starts, I go into green, or in this case blue beam. I ZGS spec, Power Burst to Vitality, make sure that I'm 100 Adren, and when I am, I go into the bunch of golems, use Meteor Strike, Limitless, then Quake. When he starts charging up the insta-kill, I use the Staff of Light spec since I get a lot of free time, and I put my Sign of Life on. After that, it's just repeat the same thing without the Power Burst, which makes it a lot less likely for me to survive. So that is absolutely everything that I can tell you about 400% Telos with 1 defense. This took a very long time to pull off, but oh my god was it ever fun. I'm only getting started, since we do have another 100% to push, but I am more than excited for it. Without further ado, this is 400% Telos with 1 defense. Enjoy. Playing with a 1 defense account is some of the most fun I've ever had playing this game. It's like learning PvM for the first time, except a lot faster since you already know most of the basics. This leads me to the 1 Defense community Discord I started with a couple other people. If you've ever been curious about 1 Defense accounts, or if you have one yourself, I've been working on guides and just general spreadsheets to make information as easy as possible to access. And of course, there's a bunch of other 1 Defense players, so they can definitely give you advice. I also want to say that honestly, making YouTube videos has been something I've been wanting to do for quite literally the majority of my life. And although I have a lot to learn, honestly, this is a lot of fun. So I really hope I can become better at it. And if you do want to support me, you can do all that typical YouTube stuff. I'm not going to say it. Just don't worry about the bell, because even I don't do that. With all that being said, I hope you have a great day, and I cannot wait to see you at 500%.